I still do not understand why you want to break into the system.
Because, man, somewhere in one of these memories is the evidence. Hey, it's the Big Master Control Program everybody's been talking about.
Kevin Flynn, computer genius. Taken prisoner and held captive within the digital world of the computer itself.
I promised you that if I ever got any information about your dad, I'd tell you first, right? I was paged last night. Came from your dad's office at the arcade. So, the number's been disconnected for 20 years. 2 nights before he disappeared, he came to my house. He said he was about to change everything, science, medicine, religion. He wouldn't have left that, Sam. He wouldn't have left you.
Alan, you're acting like I'm gonna find him sitting there working. Just, hey, kiddo, lost track of time.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters, Legacy Month continuing with Tron from 82 and Tron Legacy from 2010. I've seen Tron before, however, Tron Legacy, I saw that movie first and loved it. I remember seeing it in IMAX 3D and just thinking it was awesome. I love that movie, and then I went and watched the original one because I had no idea Tron even existed, and I enjoy it. It's not amazing by any means, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Jake, since it's first timer for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I had seen Tron Legacy when it came out that one time and had never rewatched it.
Oh wow.
I remember liking it, but like, you know, for whatever reason I just never watched it again. I don't know. I don't have a reason, I guess.
So it's been 14 years, basically, since you've watched it.
Yeah,
wow,
so I didn't remember shit about it.
Oh, wow.
Besides that Jeff Bridges was in it. But, yeah, and I had never seen the original. We never owned it or anything, so I had, like, no way to, like, find it, and like I said, I hadn't watched Tron Legacy ever again, so I never was prompted to go find the original for 14 years. Until now it's on Disney Plus, so yeah, it was nice to be able to get to watch both of them without having to rent one of them.
Yeah. They're both on Disney Plus? Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way about the first one. Like, I can appreciate the technological achievement that movie is for 1982. Like, it's pretty wild what they were able to pull off.
Yeah.
But, like, as far as it goes with everything else, it's just like, okay, you know. We'll get into Legacy, but Legacy, like, fucking rocks, so...
Yeah. And I think that's why it's hard to kind of go back and watch the first one, because of, well, one, not only because of technological advancements in CGI and film in general, but just the second, you know, Legacy is just really, like you said, it rocks. It's super fun versus... I mean, the first one's fun.
Yeah, like, I feel like the original almost takes itself too seriously.
Yes.
In some ways, instead of, like, I mean, Tron Legacy is also a fairly serious movie, but they're able to walk those lines of, like, you know, it's a kid's movie at the end of the day, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, or at least kids are able to watch it without being, you know, corrupted or whatever. But, like, yeah, like, the original is very, very serious, and, like, you can tell that, like, they took the subject matter like around like computers and like AI like incredibly seriously, and like they were trying to make it's like they were almost trying to make a masterpiece, like from the get-go, it seems like. And then, like, I feel like you kind of fall short sometimes when you do that. So
Yeah, it's almost like it's too nerdy,
yeah,
and it goes over our head computer jargon wise. And
then
not that that's
it's
a bad thing.
but also it's like it's not, because we know more about computers than most computer experts did in 1982. So
Yeah,
like
that's what's funny.
some of it's like that's like not how that works,
Mm-hmm.
like, or like for people in the early 80s and the late 70s, visualizing all this stuff, like how computers work, was like really mystical, and shit. Like now it's like no one really thinks much about that.
Yeah.
I mean, our generation in particular, I think, is more in tune with how computers actually like function. Maybe younger generations actually don't understand it all because they just grew up with it from like day one. But
Yeah.
we had to actually adapt, to it a little bit, but from a pretty early age. So I think the interest is higher.
And that's what I think makes the first one special, is how it's like going into the computer world. And I just think that's such a cool concept.
Yeah,
It's
for
such
sure.
a fun idea and so cool and
Well, and, like,
original.
So ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And like we'll talk about it more, but I think that's actually the movie's biggest problem, is that they tried to bite off too much too early. But we'll talk about it more.
Yeah. So I went through the trivia of both movies. There's a lot of cool trivia on the first one and how it's shot and stuff like that. But in my opinion, go and read that if you want. I'll talk about some things, but there was just a lot, and I didn't want to bombard or overwhelm with that. I mean, this movie is shot entirely in 65 millimeter, so 65 millimeter cameras, which is fucking awesome. And I have it on Blu-ray. I bought like the 3D Blu-ray set of Tron Legacy when it came out, and it came with the original Tron. And watching it on Blu-ray, it looked incredible. And 65 millimeter helps with that. And like another movie that was shot on 65 millimeter entirely, it was Lawrence of Arabia, like David Lean epic from like the 60s. So super, super cool that they shot this movie in 65 millimeter. It looks great.
Wasn't The Hateful Eight also 65 millimeter?
It may have been 70 millimeter.
Or 70, yeah. Sorry, side note.
I'm looking it up. Yeah, it's 70 millimeter.
Okay.
Yeah. But like some movies have been shot in 65 millimeter, and it's fucking insane, the quality.
Mm-hmm.
The first Tron was a commercial failure. It made not a ton of money at all. And there's some interesting trivia on why. But the arcade games it was based on made a ton of money. So, the arcade games that it was in, like when it came out, Tron. I'm trying to word this properly, and I'm sounding. The movie had a video game, Tron, and that
video game tie-in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that made a ton of money and actually outgrossed the film, which is pretty crazy. And another reason that it failed at the box office is marketing. At the time, Disney had just started to come out with live action movies. Like our other title that we did, Midnight Madness, was one of them. They just didn't know how to market, and also didn't market in general. Cardin Walker was in charge of Disney's advertising and public relations. Walker reportedly didn't believe in any marketing or advertising motion pictures. Yeah, so pretty crazy. And like what's around that time, 82, E.T. had come out like a month before, and they had spent like $10 million on marketing, and that movie made a boatload of money. So it's just interesting to see how marketing really affected this particular movie. Like the budget for marketing for them was only $500,000. It was very small.
And like most movies, they like almost, or a lot of them come close to like matching the actual like budget in their marketing budget, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's pretty laughable.
And it also explains why like Disney didn't really have a box office hit since The Love Bug, apparently from '69, is because of that marketing issue. Yeah, it finished in 6th place when it opened at the box office, which is bad. And still, Walker refused to raise that budget for marketing. And it's just like, he's like, oh yeah, word of mouth will come to the rescue for this movie. And it didn't. And $10.4 million of the $17 million budget was written off.
Yikes.
Yeah. So
17 million is a lot for 82, right?
yeah. Oh yeah. And due to the poorer box office return of this movie and the Black Hole from '79, which we mentioned in Midnight Madness, excuse me. Midnight Mass is a Netflix show, which is very
A
good.
killer Netflix show.
Yeah, super dope show. Disney did not make another live action film for 10 years.
Jeez.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's nuts. All because they wouldn't fucking put trailers out. Like,
Yeah. Or like market it at all.
it's insane.
Dumb. That's
Yeah.
And I'll go on a little brief tangent here. That's like studios in general. It's like you've got these people that think they know everything, and they don't, in my opinion. Not that I'm saying I know everything by any means. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But you've got like Maya Hawke, Ethan Hawke's daughter, just did an interview, and
I saw
she's-
that. Yeah.
about Instagram. Like movie studios are like, oh, how many Instagram followers do you have? If you don't have a lot, then you're not, you're not qualified. It's like,
Which
that's
is-
fucking dumb.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah,
Doesn't make any sense. Like,
And
like as somebody who is like kind of involved in like social media promotion for this and my other podcast, Bourbon
Yeah.
Matters, go check it out. Like followers don't convert into actual
Listeners.
content,
yeah,
like consumption. So, and that's like well documented too. So
really.
yeah, like it's dumb. I mean, it depends on like what platform and stuff heavily, but yeah, like it's such a stupid mentality to have.
Yeah, I agree. Again, it's just like studios really don't know what they're doing. I'm trying to see what I texted my buddy about. But yeah, he sent me that too. The whole Maya Hawke thing, and it's just like, it's fucking dumb. So
Yeah, I read Ethan Hawke's comment on it, which was like, you don't go see a movie because Robert De Niro has 1 million followers. You go see it because it's Robert De Niro, like,
yeah,
or whatever, like,
yeah.
because you want to see them act. It has nothing to do with their social media presence, which I completely agree with.
Yeah. It's just, again, studios are doing everything wrong. It's like they're just pumping like, and now like I think superhero fatigue is so like present now more than ever.
100%.
And you've
Well,
got
like they're not putting the care in anymore to the movies either.
no.
And like the new Captain America is like evident of that. I'm not going to see it, but
Neither
like
am I.
I read a couple like reviews on it, and they said the CGI is like absolute trash.
Yeah.
The acting is god awful. the script is terrible. Like literally everything about it is just shit. It's because like they don't know what to do anymore,
and they have to keep pumping the
and
content
they just
out.
have to keep creating it. So yeah, it's.
And what's crazy is
dumb.
it's making money.
Yeah.
So it's annoying. Which I'm curious how James Gunn and I know we're getting on a tangent here, but I'm curious how James Gunn's going to do with the DC, new DC era with like Superman and everything. It's like, I'm tired of superhero movies. I'm fucking tired of them. I mean, I probably will see Superman, but
yeah,
I also don't know because I don't know. I just don't know.
I've always liked DC better than Marvel anyway. So, but I think what he's doing is smarter, where it's like a fully continuous universe, even between animation and live action, which is super cool. So like like the Marvel TV shows are like, kind of like that, but like the Marvel TV shows can be very like tedious to watch sometimes, where like it's easier if you're just going to watch like an hour and 20-minute animated movie in the DC universe and be like, oh, cool, that's what happened, to blah, blah, blah. And then like there might be like a, small tie-in to the next live action movie or like a reference to a character in, one of the other, non-feature film, types of things, which is like what he said. Everything's gonna be a little bit more self-contained and less like spider web of interconnected, like bullshit. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more enjoyable for fans.
Yeah, I agree. And he's even excuse me, he's even said that he's like, I'm taking my time with things. If the script's not where it needs to be, it's not happening. Versus everything else is getting rushed. And so getting back on track with this with Tron, Tron, and this kind of goes with studios and the politics of everything. The film was nominated for 2 Oscars, Best Sound and Best Costume Design, which is kind of funny because their identity discs are Frisbees and their helmets are made out of like cardboard easily. Like you could, like, it's just kind of funny. And Blu-ray, watching the movie on Blu-ray doesn't help, with that evidence. But for 82, the costumes are still pretty fucking dope.
Yeah.
But the movie was disqualified from the Academy for special effects because they thought at the time computer-generated images were cheating.
That's hilarious.
Isn't it? So,
I don't know if this was the first movie to use CGI. Probably not. Like true CGI. But I mean, it's got to be the first movie to like heavily lean into it.
100% is.
So that's a pretty wild statement to be like, yeah, you can't can't use computers when the whole fucking point of the movie is using computers to like do stuff. You know? It's funny.
Yeah, agreed. And what's funny, so this also kind of ties into politics and the future of Hollywood, is on this film, on Tron, many of the Disney animators refused to work on it because they thought eventually the computers would take their job from the animation side of things. And it would like put them out of business. And 22 years later, Disney closed its hand-drawn animation studio in favor of CGI animation, because this movie does a lot of hand-drawn animation.
Mm-hmm.
And then John Lasseter, who's the head of Pixar, he basically brought back hand-drawn animation. So like he did Toy Story and everything, John Lasseter. It's pretty interesting because AI is getting so prevalent now in the world, and it's scary to think what's going to happen. I mean, I literally just think Terminator. It's literally every time
or Master Control.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, my intelligence has gained, like, what does he say, like 2,400 times greater than it was like fucking yesterday.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So yeah, it's interesting because this movie is still relevant from '82, which is cool. So yeah, I know you said it's like trying to be ahead of its time. It is.
No, it for sure is ahead of its time. Like, and
Yeah.
in all the like. So I'll just elaborate on that comment now.
Sorry, and I don't mean to misquote you there too.
No. Like, I mean, for like plot wise and like thematically, this movie is like so far ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
The aspects of it where I think they, I mean, like, I don't want to say that they should have waited, but like the visual effects just aren't quite up to like where they need to be, you know, to like really convey this story well. There were a lot of times where like they were trying to do some like really cool stuff, but like through the animation and computer graphics, it just got like too muddy and you can't really tell what's happening in like a few scenes. Like nothing that's like super detrimental, but it's like, you know, like it really would have been an awesome shot of the guy, you know, driving the light cycle, but there's like so much shit going on. It's hard to like tell like what's going on, you know, sometimes.
I could see that.
Like they have him, there's like an orange filter over his face. Plus there's like stuff like flying animated, like things flying past him and stuff. It's like, this is like a little overstimulating for a like, you know, 5-second shot, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, and like, it's obvious what they were trying to do. Like they're trying to make this like unbelievably impressive, effect, you know, in every single shot. You can tell that they probably spent like dozens of hours just hand drawing a lot of these sets and animations and stuff. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it just didn't land. I mean, they're limited by, you know, what they're able to actually accomplish at that time, effects wise. So I don't harp on it I don't want to harp on it too much, but
For sure. I want to talk about the score for the first one. I mean, obviously we'll talk about the second one, but the first one, what'd you think of the first one?
Rocks. Yeah, the first one's pretty good. I would have I was actually a little surprised that it's not super like synth heavy and like pushing that boundary as well. Like it was a pretty like standard kind of score. Which is like a little disappointing because I mean, we'll talk about Daft Punk's score in the second one, which is like epic. But yeah, I think the end titles of the original have like some like synth going on and stuff, and like I was like, oh, where was this the whole movie? You know, like this is how it should have been scored, you know. But again, like that's not the convention of the time. I think probably the closest movie to this that did go with a synth heavy score was probably Blade Runner. And like, you know, well, Blade Runner was 81.
Same year, 82.
Same year.
Like 82 had so many incredible sci-fi movies, like Blade Runner. This fucking like visual effects were fucking killer. I mean, you had E.T. The year before you had Raiders. Like the visual effects in Raiders is
pushing the boundaries of visual effects for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The score is really good. I think it's just disappointing that they didn't lean more into the technology aspect of the time, you know, when they did on every other component of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, so I read a little bit about the soundtrack and everything. So it was composed by Wendy Carlos, who is awesome. She did the soundtrack for A Clockwork Orange and The Shining. So she had a good working relationship with Kubrick. And I don't know, it just like she used the like a Moog synthesizer, and it was like a mix of that and like a GDS digital synthesizer, and I think it's awesome. I mean, obviously, again for us, it's hard to compare, or like because we saw Tron Legacy first, and it's just like it's just technologically so much better, and then you've got not to you know to minimalize the quality of work on this, but like Daft Punk just fucking rocks, and like we grew up with Daft Punk, so
well, I'm actually surprised that there was like a couple different synths used, because like if you would have asked me, I thought it was like a full orchestra, you know, like a John Williams kind of conducted orchestra score, like. So it's actually a little surprising. Maybe I'll have to go back and listen to. It was
recorded at the London Philharmonic, with the London Philharmonic Orchestra.
Okay, so it was actually like a live, like instrumental plus synthesizer.
And you got Journey on the soundtrack too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was
I mean,
cool.
it's a good score for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted some like BB Boo Bop, you know, computer
you
music.
You wanted more Legacy. Is basically you wanted more Tron Legacy.
I mean, even like, you know, like the way Vangelis did Blade Runner was like super sci-fi, like dystopian,
synthy.
You know, like that airy synth from like the early 80s is dope. Like they should have.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't get that into the score. But
yeah, agreed. I think one of the coolest parts is like the opening with the NCOM helicopter and how it's all illuminated. I thought that was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
You got Dillinger's office is super cool. His like computer that he's working on, that was really cool and high tech.
Very Skynet.
Yeah. Yep. I like when they hack into the door and he's like, now that's a big door, which they call out in Tron Legacy. Now, did you watch them like the same day? Did you watch them
back-to-back days?
Same here. Now, did you pick up on certain things that were like references or call outs from Tron to Tron Legacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the door was the most obvious one.
Yeah. There's a handful of them, like when it's like Jeff Bridges is in the light cycle and he's like, come on, this is it. And what's his name does that? Sam Flynn in Legacy does that too, which is cool. The shot of Kevin Flynn, Jeff Bridges getting like atomized into the like world of Tron is super cool, even though it's not the world. It's like the grid gets
The
like
grid,
atomized into the grid is so fucking cool. That shot is awesome. It
Yeah.
might be a little long, if you ask me, like the shot of it and like it digitizing him.
I mean, but that's they were like, this is so fucking cool. We're gonna make people watch this. You know?
Yep. And yeah, just like that whole like it just he's like in costume, and he meets Tron. He meets what's the other guy's name? Like it's not Bar or whatever is it? Ram.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the characters. The only thing I don't like is Kevin Flynn is like trying to mac on Laura, basically, it seems like, who's Alan Bradley's girlfriend.
But they allude to that they dated before she was with Alan.
True. I don't know. It was just interesting.
Yeah, it's a little
It's like a love triangle.
unnecessary in the end because they're all on the same team. So like,
Yeah.
you know, if Alan was like a secret bad guy, I would have been like, yeah, okay, like he deserves it, you know. But like he is Tron, so like why are we trying to screw with him, you know?
Yeah. The light cycle scene is really cool. I mean, it's very CGI and very animated, but it's really cool. I like that. So at the time, with computer animation, the technology did not exist for a shot to contain both live actors and computer animation. So live action shots were combined with hand-drawn animation. Strong editing, such as the light cycle chase, created an apparently seamless blend of actors and computer animation. So kind of like what you were talking about earlier, but pretty interesting how it didn't really exist, and they combined it for this movie. So
It was before green screen, so
yeah. There's a small, I don't know if you caught the reference, but when Sark, who is also Dillinger, Sark is like looking when all the like when Kevin Flynn and Ram and Tron all leave the game grid and go off, Sark is like trying to get them caught, and there's a Pac-Man.
yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Pac-Man on like his board, which I was like, oh shit, Pac-Man.
Yeah, that was
I never
kinda
noticed
funny.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool lines like greetings programs, which is also in Tron Legacy.
End of line.
Yeah, end of line is dope. Super dope. I just think it's funny where, you know, Ram dies and they have that classic like movie motif or like line, that classic line where it's like, you know, where's Ram? He didn't make it. He didn't make it. And they shake their head. It's like such like a movie trope. And they do that twice in this fucking movie.
Yeah. Yep.
They do that with Ram and Tron.
Yeah.
Ram is actually dead. Tron comes back though.
Yeah.
But it's just so far. I like watched it and I was like, man, it's almost like the actors were trying hard in this movie,
Yeah.
but it's like they weren't, and it's like I don't know. It was interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I do think this movie suffers a little bit from try hard.
Yeah.
It would have benefited a little bit more from like a little bit more levity, I think. But I mean, it's not to say that it's falls flat or anything.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I like the ending. I think there's a lot of cool things to it. I like when Tron throws his disc and like slices open Sark's head, and his like computer parts are falling out, like his brains. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the movie.
The overall plot is like so well crafted. Like the whole concept that Master Control is like hacking into all other like networks in the world and like stealing their programs is like super cool, and like again like way ahead of its time, referencing AI without even
Knowing what
like
the fuck
knowing
that is.
what it is. And, yeah. I mean, this is like kind of foundational to Terminator and Terminator 2 and Skynet. You know, like we've already mentioned. Yeah, I mean, it's super cool. The way that the relationship between Dillinger and Master Control is like subverted like very quickly, where like you think that Dillinger's this like high powered CEO, and then Master Control kind of like puts him in his place. He's like, you know, you're gonna go do this, you know. It's like, oh, like, okay, Dillinger's not running the show here. You know?
Yeah, and MCP is like, I'm about to hack into the Kremlin and like all this crazy shit, and you're like,
the Pentagon, I think, is what it's like talking about, and Dillinger's like, oh, geez, like,
yeah, it like. What's great? It's a simplistic plot if you think about it. Like I wanted it to go more into like, I think it needed to be elaborated more how Kevin Flynn gets his, like, game stolen by Dillinger.
Yeah.
I think that needed to be explained a little bit more. And then I also think the ending, the movie just kind of ends. It's just like, you know, Kevin Flynn gets out of the NCOM helicopter and it's like, hey, guys, hey, friends. And then the movie ends. It's
Yeah.
just like, so it's
Right.
kind of, I guess that's just like an 80s thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I think,
So.
yeah, I mean, like, there is a lot of world building in the movie, which is, like, appreciated in this type of film. But yeah, like, the plot itself is super simple, though there's a lot of, like, detail to the plot that's, like, built out. But the plot itself isn't necessarily fleshed out from there's like, it's a singular plot. There's no real, like, subplots to the movie at all, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. There's no backstory on, like, a lot of characters or, like, Ram or anything like that. But I like that it takes the characters from the real world and, like, combines them into the computer world. Like, apparently, I think Ram is the guy who's like, hey, can I get popcorn to Alan Bradley?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, overall, it's a good movie. It's not amazing by any means. I think this movie is dated, just with the technology that's out there now, obviously. And again, I think had we've seen this when we were kids prior to Tron Legacy, I think we'd probably appreciate it more, especially if we were born in the 80s.
Yeah.
Or, you know, lived in the 80s when this movie came out.
I mean, like, what's kind of sad is, like, it was, like, dated by, like, probably 1986, you know, like, in terms of technology.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, like, it like, again, like, I don't want to drag it, but, like, they tried to do all this stuff. If they could have waited, like, 2 years, they could have made it even more, like, spectacular, you know?
Yeah. I
mean,
think it
like,
still
they
holds
they didn't
up-ish.
know that, but, you know, like, it's just one of those, like, what if, you know, kind of things. Like,
Yeah. But I'm glad we watched it. And I want to move on to the Legacy sequel, which is funny that it's called Tron Legacy because it's a Legacy sequel. I mean, that's 28 years later. So I love this movie. Again, I saw it in IMAX when it came out in 2010. It's directed by Joseph Kosinski. He directed Top Gun Maverick, another Legacy sequel. I think he's a good director. I don't think he's amazing. Like Oblivion, the other Tom Cruise movie he made, I thought was just okay. I am due for a rewatch on it. It's literally on my list to watch. Have you seen that movie?
yeah, it was good.
Okay.
Wasn't great, but yeah.
It's
was
another
good.
another beautifully shot sci-fi movie with an average plot. Which
Yeah.
I think I like Tron Legacy a lot. I don't think it's like an amazing movie. I think visually it's amazing. I think soundtrack it's amazing, but like plot and as far as the movie goes, it's okay. It's not, and it's fun and it's entertaining, which those are the movies I do enjoy.
Yeah.
If you like look at reviews for this movie, it doesn't have the greatest reviews. A lot of people don't like it, believe it or not. But a lot of people still have kind of a cult following for this and the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, a desire for the sequel, to Tron from '82, kind of grew around 2005. And that's when Disney kind of acknowledged its cult status on the first one, which is pretty interesting. It's also interesting that this is Joseph Kosinski's directorial debut.
Oh wow!
And it was $170 million budget, so it's the biggest budget they've ever given to a first-time director, like in the history of film, which is pretty crazy. I think he did a good job.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's some rewrites that had to happen after the film, like had some viewings, and the producers and like studio didn't think it was amazing. I wanted this movie to make. I remember when it came out, I was like, why is this movie not making a ton of money? And like, I remember news outlets being like, oh yeah, like they want to make a sequel, but they're not going to because it didn't make a ton of money. But obviously they are making a sequel now, but I don't know how direct of a sequel it's going to be because it only has Jeff Bridges and not Garrett Hedlund or Olivia Wilde.
Yeah, I thought it's kind of a standalone story set in the Tron universe.
Yeah, I wonder how it's going to be handled.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, Tron Ares, like the director, I'm a little curious by, because I've like never heard of him. It's Joachim, I can't pronounce his name. Roning. Joachim. What else has he done? Oh, he did Pirates of the Caribbean. He did one of the Pirates of the Caribbean. He did Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. He did a bunch of like Disney movies.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm curious how it's gonna go. And here comes the cameo from Sadie, as usual. There
Hi.
she is. All right, come on, lay down. Yeah, it only made $400 million worldwide on a $170 million budget, and probably had quite a bit of a marketing budget, so it like barely made money. I like that the movie starts in the 80s, and it's got a digital, like, what do you think about the digitally de-aged Jeff Bridges?
Yeah, so I mean I forgot that they did that.
Okay.
But it came back to me, you know, when you see him for the first time. But my first thought was like everybody went like crazy about The Irishman de-aging. Then I was like, they've de-aged Jeff Bridges pretty well 10 years before The Irishman came out. So I don't know why everybody's like all worked up about that. I mean, like it's not a perfect job, but it's pretty damn good. Like,
It's decent.
yeah.
I think digital de-aging is very interesting because it's just, you can tell it's fake. You can tell it's CGI, and it detracts. Like, there's controversy on the Grand Moff Tarkin from Rogue One with the digital creation of him, since that actor, Peter Cushing, had passed away prior to that movie being released. In 2008, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, he was digitally de-aged and aged in that movie. And I thought it wasn't bad in that movie. Yeah, it's just interesting. I don't
mind it as much in this context because he's a computer program.
Yeah, I agree.
For most of the movie, Clue is a computer program. So it's like whatever, you know.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me. His face is just kind of like a little bit, you know, flat, kind of too smooth. But it's like expensive to do that, digital de-aging. That's why The Irishman had a crazy budget. Netflix was like, cool, we'll throw you money because we have a ton of money and we don't give a shit. And I don't know. It's just like, is there really a need to digital de-age? I mean, back in the day, they just got actors that looked like him, and it was totally fine. I
mean, for this movie, I'd say yes.
It makes sense,
and it's okay. Yeah. But yeah, for like most movies, it's just one of those things to be like, look what we can do with computers, you know?
Yeah.
It's basically the only reason Avatar was made is because they were like, look what we can do with computers.
Yeah. And it kind of takes me out of it a little bit. On this movie, again, it doesn't really, because, like you said, it's CGI. This whole movie is so CGI laden that it's like, all right, I don't give a shit.
But I will note again, like, haven't seen this in 14 years, so I was like, I wonder how it's actually gonna look. And like, this movie looks way better than most modern CGI. Like,
I know.
It's mind blowing to me that
Yeah.
we've actually regressed in our ability to produce good CGI.
Yeah, it's like look at AI and like the CGI-ishness of that, what just takes you out of it. Like I kind of hear a small tangent. Like The Quiet Place Day One, which is a god awful fucking movie, if you ask me. It's so bad. There's like I remember I was in the theater and there's a scene that like shows the outside of like a hospital, and it was the CGI was so bad. It was like AI generated, probably. It was so bad. I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, "This is fucking terrible." And this movie is going to be terrible, literally just because of that tiny scene. And sure enough, it was. Which I don't want movies to be terrible.
No.
It's the last thing I want movies to be.
Yeah.
But like, when you it's kind of a slap in the face to the fucking audience, if you ask me.
Right. Yeah.
When it's like that, and it's that bad.
Well, especially when like the movie has like a $300 million budget, and it's like you're gonna shortchange the CGI. Like,
Yeah. Like you're saying with the new Captain America movie, like
the
the
CGI
is
is
supposed
now
to be
like the
trash.
cheapest part of the movie. You know, like like spend to make it decent. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just again, this is why we're doing this podcast, folks.
Yeah.
80s movies, they're better.
But maybe it means people are going to do more practical effects, like
Alien Romulus.
Alien Romulus. A lot of like I think a lot of like Top Gun Maverick was
Oh yeah,
real stuff, you know, and I think more and more movies I think are trying to do more practical effects, which is good to see because
I hope so. Yeah, I
where you can, you know, obviously
Yeah.
Red Hulk can't be practical effect, but
yeah, a puppet.
yeah, giant puppet.
Yeah. I love the transition in the beginning of this movie from Little Sam to Big Sam, where Little Sam is like, you know, upset his dad kind of ran away or disappeared, and he's goes out on his bicycle, and then it transitions to him on a Ducati, which this movie
bike
makes
is
me
so
want a Ducati Sport Classic. One of my buddies has one, and I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. It's so sick. And like that's when the soundtrack really just comes alive, is right in that scene where he's kind of weaving through traffic and gets, you know, chased by a cop. Yeah, it's awesome. And then he goes to Encom Tower, and you've got a like small cameo from Cillian Murphy as Edward Dillinger, which is very interesting.
Yeah,
Because it's like they definitely were trying to world build and eventually like to make a sequel with another, like with Dillinger taking over. So it's just interesting. Certain steps that were taken, and it's sad that it probably won't see those come to fruition. Like Cillian Murphy is obviously not in Tron Ares. He could be.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
I doubt it.
but I mean, that's just like a cool. If nothing else, it's a cool little nod to the first one, and
Yeah.
like shows that the company's making the wrong decisions in hiring the child of, you know, a criminal, basically,
Yeah.
that almost destroyed their company.
Which is
So,
also interesting to think about. It's like, why? Why is he there?
yeah,
Wouldn't they be like blacklisted? I don't know. It's just interesting. And like, especially watching the first one and then watching Legacy, it's like kind of interesting.
yeah,
I like when Sam enters the grid and like you've got the those airplane things. I forgot what they called them in the first one. But those things are super cool, and it like lands and picks him up like it's a cop. I thought that was awesome. And then you get the like all the banter where he's like taken prisoner almost, and they're like, you know, does the name Kevin Flynn mean anything to you? It's like, be quiet if you want to live. And it's like electronic voice. And
like
yeah,
broken electronic voice
it's
is
so
super cool. Yeah,
It's so cool. It just sets the pace really well. and then he goes to the games, the gladiatorial games, like in the first Tron movie. Which in the first Tron movie, they basically are like playing fucking lacrosse with each other, and in this one, they're actually using discs, and like the shots of them getting like digitized into pieces and breaking into pieces is so cool. And you get Rinsler, and it's just fucking awesome. And their costumes in this movie are so cool. Like how this movie didn't get nominated for costume design is beyond me, and makeup, because it's so dope.
I mean, like the costumes are, I think, practical, at least mostly practical.
I've got a tidbit on that.
The glowing is super cool. Like, it is kind of wild that they didn't get a nod for that, you know?
Yeah. So the suits worn by the actors proved to be problematic on set. Every single one of them was fitted with a small lithium battery that powered the circuitry for the embedded light strips, because all theirs are illuminated by light, which is so fucking cool. But each battery only lasted 12 minutes. So basically, in order to maximize light output, the light strips had to be switched on right before each take and turned off right at the end of each take. So they were also, like, the circuitries inside the suits were really fragile. And so, like, the actors couldn't sit between takes. They had to, like, recline against, like, boards and stuff. Excuse me. And some of the circuitries were, like, faulty a little bit and would shock the actors. It was just pretty interesting. Yeah. And again, it's like you hear all this, and it's like first-time director. He doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, then you get the light cycle battle. The light cycle battle is so fucking awesome, and I love where he's like, now this I can do. And the whole shot of them, pulling the, like, stick apart and it turning into the motorcycle or light cycle is so fucking cool.
I like that they also made it three-dimensional in terms of how they move and stuff, instead of just sticking to the 90-degree turns, that are like in the original. Like they actually adapted it to like modern, like video game or like, capabilities, which is nice to see. Because
the first Tron, Steven Liddensberger or whatever his name is, who directed it, and I'm sorry I'm botching that. I'm going to look it up real quick because it's going to bother me. I want to make sure I pronounce it. He was influenced by Pong, the game Pong. So it's just, Lisberger, Steven Lisberger, excuse me. I like that they adapted it to more modern games. And then it's almost like a repeat where they go off the grid and go and find Kevin Flynn, his dad. The reuniting is kind of interesting, where he's just like, all right, we'll talk later. We'll talk at dinner. It's like, what? Just seems interesting. I don't know. What do you think about that?
He's got all those like philosophy books and stuff, and like he's become this kind of like Buddhist Zen master, like living in isolation because he wants to stay as far away from Clue as possible. It's kind of like that. I'm trying to think of like an example or an equivalency, but like he's kind of lost some of his humanity, from being in isolation for so long. I think.
Sure.
So yeah, it's like an interesting interaction because he interacts with
Cora.
Thank you. Emo Olivia Wilde. and, but like she's not quite a human,
that's true.
So yeah, it's a little bit different of an interaction, I think, when Sam finally arrives.
I do like the story of how he tells him why he got trapped and like the ISOs, and it's interesting. I mean, the the themes of like good and evil in this movie, and like the Bible and like God and like the devil, is very apparent in this movie. Flynn is godlike. The grid is like Earth, and Tron and Clue are like the angels, or like keeping watch, and then Clue obviously turns bad. The miracle of the ISOs is like the humans coming into existence, like the human race. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, and like Clue's motivation is very Skynet-y, also. Like the classic AI trope that like AI
Wants
will
to take over
always
the world.
kind of take things to the like most impractical degree. So like, he sees, or he's told by Kevin, I want you to create the perfect system, and any imperfections become intolerable to him, so that everything must be adhering to, his like strict codes, which is why you just said what the people are
ISOs?
called. The ISOs are like unacceptable.
The movie said
to
it
him.
too, not just me. Okay,
Yeah.
Jake.
You literally just said it, and I
I know.
totally blanked.
I know. Again, this isn't our day job, people. It's hard to figure all these things out sometimes, and also it's late-ish in the day when we record these. So
Yeah.
bear with us for technical difficulties. Thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, I like Clue as a villain.
Yeah, me too.
I also like that he's a reference to Clue in the original, who's like Jeff Bridges' like own version of Tron that he's trying to like create
Yeah.
in the original. And he ends up being the villain in this one. I think that's a cool inversion, and also, and I don't know if you want to jump to Tron's eventual appearance in this movie, but I think that's also a pretty cool revelation.
How
that
Rinsler is Tron.
is Tron.
Yeah, and there's a couple references where you could be like, oh, okay. It's like with
Yeah.
where he's holding the two discs, and then it's the suit color is like, or the suit lights are the same, and him not killing Sam in the beginning because he
also
fights
not
for the
killing
users.
Cora is an interesting moment too, where he has the opportunity and instead he takes her prisoner.
Yeah.
And almost, I don't know if you noticed this, but when he's about to kill Cora, he's in like the same exact stance that Clue was when Clue almost kills, or supposedly killed, Tron in the flashback, which is pretty interesting.
Oh, cool. I like Kevin Flynn's house. It's very 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
Like the white room in that movie with the floor. It's like the exact same, the floor, which is super cool. And like the books and everything, like kind of Victorian style, almost like 2001. I like that. I think that was really cool. And I think Joseph Kosinski, who directed Tron Legacy, is a pretty big Kubrick fan. Which there's a couple behind the scenes tidbits on Oblivion that he did, and he's like, yeah, I'm a Kubrick guy. Like some things he does because of that, and influenced from that. The End of Line Club is fucking awesome. You've got Daft Punk as the DJs in there, which is super cool. And I love how like shit just hits the fan, and they're just like, they look at each other and like nod and just
start busting out some sick jams. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the characters in the club are fucking awesome. What's Castor?
Zeus?
Yeah, Zeus / Castor.
Just cat, yeah.
Who I'm blanking on his fucking name. I'm terrible today. What the hell is his name? He's fucking awesome in this. Like he has so much pizzazz and like just he's great. Michael Sheen. I just looked it up. He's awesome in this. And
I feel like every dystopian sci-fi movie has one character like this that's just like a batshit loony person,
yeah.
Like he does it pretty well. So
Agreed. Yeah. I like. I like all like the special effects of the like army that he's building, and like this shot where they're like all like pushing their sticks on the ground is such a cool shot. It's interesting though. Then you kind of get the ending ish where they start to just like fight back is super cool, and like Sam getting his dad's disc back is really cool, and them flying and trying to get to the portal is cool, and it's very like Star Wars like with the Millennium Falcon and like Luke Skywalker shooting on the gun like, in the turret seat, and you've got Sam shooting in the turret seat. That whole scene is awesome. The ending is a little anticlimactic, a little bit too. I mean, Jeff Bridges basically just wipes out the whole world. Is what it seems like. So I don't know. It's interesting. And then like Korra's in the real world. And it's like, does she bleed blood? You know, she bleed.
Is it, what the deal with the ISOs are that they're not programs, right? They're like spontaneous
isomorphic algorithms.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
yeah,
well, we don't know.
Does she bleed? Do you bleed?
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a fun movie. I've always liked it. It's a movie that I don't take too seriously. And however, with this podcast, I took it a little seriously, just to like, kind of review it and give a difference of opinion from when I have watched it. But it's a fun movie. I really enjoy it. Visually, it's awesome. Soundtrack wise, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a fun watch. I've watched this movie at least 10 times. Like I've seen it a whole bunch. I've always liked it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple shortcomings. Nothing that really ruins anything for you. Yeah, I think overall it's fun, and that's like the best you can hope for. You know.
Yeah.
Short
Agreed.
of being a masterpiece. So.
Yeah. So would you watch the first Tron again?
I don't know. Maybe with like my kids, probably.
Sure. Definitely the second one.
Yeah, definitely the second one. I like the second one. It's fun.
All right.
And
so
all the Daft Punk songs have been stuck in my head for like weeks.
Oh, really?
Because I just started listening to the soundtrack at work to get pumped up.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So, now that we're pretty much done with Legacy Month, right? This is the last one.
Yep.
What were the best?
It's tough. I think Confess Fletch is probably my favorite, followed by Tron Legacy.
Yes. Same. I love Confess Fletch.
I did like Ghostbusters Afterlife quite a bit more than I thought I was going to.
That's good.
I'll say that.
I'm a meh on that. Just a meh.
Yeah, you didn't like it.
Yeah. I loved watching the original Beetlejuice, the first Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Second one was okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
So I like Confess Fletch, I like Beetlejuice, and I like Tron Legacy. Those are like my three for me. So tough to choose.
Yeah, I loved Confess Fletch. I'm glad that we picked that one because yeah, I don't know. Again, like I don't know why I put off watching that for so long because you told me about it like over a year ago, and I was just like, yeah, I'll get to it.
Yeah. For our viewers, please watch that movie. It is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's good because it's a newer movie that made no money. Show it some love.
Yeah.
But
make it a cult classic, and maybe they'll make another one.
Exactly. That's my hope for it, and that's exactly why I want people to watch it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this month. I thought this Legacy sequel idea was really fun. I'm glad we did this. Hopefully our viewers and our listeners enjoyed it as well. I see our schedule. I looked at our schedule kind of while we were talking. I don't know if I want to keep that, but we... I said that last time.
Every month.
With these. I know. But we probably could keep it. So, looks like next month... let's just fucking keep it. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Because we're going to do Airplane, which I have seen, but not for a long time. This is Spinal Tap, which I've never seen, and I've wanted to for a while. Have you seen it?
Good. So good.
Oh, good. Okay. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which I haven't seen since like fucking middle school.
Same.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I can't wait to talk about that one because I have a fantastic personal story regarding that one, and I think I've told you that from the get-go of this podcast. It's really funny. And Revenge of the Nerds. I've never seen that movie.
Me either.
So that's on the list. Hopefully that's what we'll stick to. I'm sure we will. Yeah, again, hope you guys enjoyed this film month of Legacy sequels and their original movies. I really did. I know you did, Jake.
Yeah.
We'll catch you next week with Airplane.
Yep. See ya.
Alrighty. Thanks for listening.